And here we are at the Food Chain Lab in Ecology. It's another virtual interactive lab by Annenberg, and it is going to correlate between what you're learning in the lecture when you read sections 1, 2, and 3 on ecology. So here we go. And hello, there we are. Okay, so the overview. So this is the website that you're going to be going to, which will connect you to this lab. And then the simulator button on the upper right-hand corner will get you to the simulation. All right, so in the overview, as you're learning in Unit 4 on ecology, interactions are very, very complicated. And what you're going to be doing in this simulated interactive lab is to build your own ecosystem. And it's based on the relationships that is present between the top predators, the omnivores, the herbivores, the carnivores, and the producers. Okay, so this is the challenge. There are two parts to this lab. The producers, and you're going to do step 1 and step 2. And then the food web, you're going to be also doing step 1 and step 2. So step 1, the challenge is, what can you do? How can you have two species interact with each other so that both survive? Or maybe that's not the case, and so it goes. So what you're actually going to be doing in step 1, you hit that simulator button, and you're going to presume that there was a fire and all of the life was wiped out. And what will first happen is the producers will come, the grasses will grow, the plants will grow. And then once they do that, because all they need is carbon dioxide and water, then they can do photosynthesis, and then that becomes the basis of your food pyramid, your food chain. So what you're going to do is when you go to the simulation, there's already a default, and the default is that the two grasses, grass A and grass B, they are going to grow, but they're also going to compete. They're not really competing for the sun, but they're competing for land. So you're going to run it a couple of times, and then the questions you're going to ask for this section is, does the result of the test show codominance as well as the general terrain of the ecosystem, because it has to grow in soil? And then the second question from your data, which producer was dominant? Was it plant A? Was it plant B? And you're going to hypothesize. It's not a right or wrong answer, but why might one producer be dominant over another? Okay, so how do you do this? You're going to go to the website and you're going to hit the simulator button. And the simulator button is going to show you the producers. And that should be a default setting. If not, just hit producer. The food web is already preset to plant A and plant B. That's done for you. You're going to hit the run button and you're going to watch day 1 through 16. Now you might want to run it again. If so, just hit reset and make sure that you've still got plant A and plant B on, and then run it again and see if you're coming up with the same basic data. You can look at the graph below and see which plant lived and which died. Now it's randomized, so the two plants don't necessarily have to go life, death, but there's going to be one that's more predominant than the other. Which one is it? So then you're going to go back, answer those two questions, and go on to step 2. Okay, so when you go to the simulator, you're going to again have producers, but this time you're going to increase the complexity of your food chain. So you're going to click on herbivore, the bunny rabbit, and when you do, there'll be a menu that will drop down and you will hit Eat Plant A. But you're going to leave Plant B on, and you just have to click on it and there's Plant B. The rabbit is only eating plant A, but not plant B. Record what happens to the population numbers in the ecosystem. Record your results. Now, does adding the herbivore. So the first experiment was just the two grasses, A and B. The second experiment is add an herbivore, but just have it eat one type of grass. So does adding the herbivore establish a more equal field? Is one producer still dominant over the other? Why might one producer be dominant and the other not? How do producer populations, the second question, with the presence of an herbivore versus not the herbivore. So in other words, compare the two experiments. What happened when it was just the grasses competing? Now you've got a rabbit eating one of the grasses, not the other. What's happening? What's different? Okay, so how do you do it? Hit the simulator button, make sure that you're on producers, make sure you got hit reset, and then you're going to click on herbivore A, choose eat plant A, leave the activated button for plant B. Now, if plant B isn't lit up, just hit plant B and it will activate. Okay, so now we've got an herbivore. It's eating plant A, but not plant B. And then hit the run button and watch day 1 through 100. Look at the graph below, see what plant lived, which plant did not, or low numbers, and what happened to the rabbit population. So you're going to collect all that data, and then you're going to go back and answer these questions. All right, so read this on your own. There is a question right here that has to do with humans. For your consideration, I love this section because it goes a little bit more into linking ideas between the virtual textbook and the virtual lab. So things like competitive exclusion principle, where you have two, let's say, grasses compete and one's going to exclude the other. You also got into a little bit about the food chain. You got the consumers, you got your herbivores, and what's going to happen next is you're going to add your omnivores and your predators. But I do want you to think about this question and write, a couple of sentences on it. You've learned a lot from the text and the videos. How are humans contributing to the creation of a rapid form of succession? Think about farming. You can think about other examples. And then question 2 that I'd like you to answer is, how are we speeding up the effects of competitive exclusion principle, right? One organism is being excluded by the other, and so one competes and survives and the other one dies, and thereby altering the outcome of that ecosystem's natural succession. So think about ways in which humans might have inadvertently, sometimes it's unintended consequences. It might be unintended consequences of having a spurt in building of houses that breaks up the natural flow of places where deer might be migrating to, or squirrels might be relying on oak trees, and we then clear the land in order to build a house, things of that nature. So how, as humans, do we, just give me one example. Now, next, food web. So we're going to get more complicated. We're going to add in. Usually what happens is the base of the food triangle is going to be your producer. Then you're going to have your herbivores, and they just are eating the grass, the plants. And they're going to be less in number. And then who are going to eat the herbivores? Well, those are going to be your omnivores or your carnivores. And they will be less in number. And then you would have like a top predator. And usually the top predator is like 1 or 2 animals, like a wolf. And you're not going to have more numbers necessarily. Usually the top predator is pretty low in number. And then next comes the carnivores, omnivores, and then herbivores, and then your producer. That's how you get your triangle. So let's see what the simulation's all about. All right, so in this one, when you hit lesson food web, you are going to find a default setting in which herbivore A eats plant A, omnivore A eats herbivore A. Ta-ta. And then specifically what's going to happen is this. You're going to hit the simulator button, make sure it's reset, make sure your lesson is on food web, and then it is preset squirrel, an omnivore, to rabbit, an herbivore, to plant A. That's what the settings are. And then you're just going to hit that run button, watch day 1 through 100. If you want to see a second run, just hit reset and then run. And then look at the graph and see the numbers. Okay, it's going to go day 1 through 100, so you can see the trends. And the numbers for the omnivore, blue is squirrel, herbivore, tan is rabbit, and producer, plant A, is green. And then record and answer the questions on this slide. So it asks you to predict. You know, can you predict if you have a predator that's an omnivore that's going to be eating the herbivore that's going to be eating the grasses? Can you now make a ballpark prediction of what's going to be happening? And again, run it twice, hit reset, and then record the data. From that, was your prediction correct? You know, yes or no. You're not going to get marked off if it wasn't correct. How did you arrive at your prediction? And that could be like, I know that the top predator is low in number because it can't be supported by large, or the ecosystem can't support large numbers because of blah, blah, blick, blick. All right, so were your predictions correct? How did you arrive at the prediction? What differences were there between your prediction and the actual results? The second question, what would happen to this imaginary ecosystem if the producers died out? So like no plants. Question 3, did any of the species increase in number? What could account for the increase? What species decreased in number, and what might account for this decrease? I'll give you an example. If you have a rabbit that is eating a plant, the plant population is going to go down as the rabbit population explodes. You got more bunnies, but more bunnies mean they're going to need to have more plant A. So then plant A starts to die out, and then the bunnies starve, and their numbers go down. And as soon as their numbers go down, you can have the other numbers go up, blah, 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 blah. So these are the types of when you start to see the graph going up and down for the 3, look to see, is it because of the rabbits eating the plants? Is it because of the omnivore eating the rabbit? And so forth and so on. So those are what they're trying to have you grapple with. Okay, so we did that. Now we're step 2. Step 2 is perhaps the most interesting one. So it's more of a real life scenario, and there is an all on button. It's where you have your squirrels and your deer and your wolf. Underneath that, you're going to see all on. There's a button for that. There's a button for all off. You're going to do all on, and then you're going to go, whoa, because everything is going to be connected. Now, you can predict, looking at that, knowing how a food web works, predict which populations would probably die out, which ones are going to succeed, increase in numbers, which ones are going to decrease but not die out, and then hit, right? You can already hit reset. You've done all on, and now hit run. And again, you're going to do the simulation twice and hit the reset button between the runs. Record your results. Now, this is the best part. You're going to create your own food web, and your aim is to try to ensure the survival of all the species. record your data and what was changed in your chart, and then finally answer the following. So let me just go to the next slide. And it says, to do step 2 for the food web, right, you're going to clear everything. You're going to hit the simulator button. You're going to hit reset. You're going to still be on food web lesson. And you are going to, sorry about this. All right. I'm sorry. So what actually should happen is you have the all on. The second one is to reset and hit all off and then create your own food web. I'm going to give you a hint about this. When you create your own food web and you want all of your organisms to survive on some level, they can go up, they can go down, but you don't want anyone to die. There may be some creatures that you're just going to leave alone. I'm going to make this up. Let's say that the only way that you're going to get your food web to have some deer survive is not to have them be preyed on, but to give them food to eat. And it just might, and as you're playing with this, you're going to start to see that, yeah, the connection of the deer might be with the plants, but you are going to have clever little deer that are not going to get eaten by omnivores and predators. So play with it. And there may be a grass, or there may be an herbivore that is really robust, can take anything that you throw at it, connect that one, and see what happens. So this is going to be where you play, where you have fun, where you realize that what you're trying to do after you did all on, you're trying to create a food web which would sustain a robust, complicated ecosystem. All right, so let's go back. And away we go. So the two questions are, the first question is all about what happened when everything was all on. What happened to everybody? You could have made predictions. And what's the difference between your predictions and what you actually got for simulated data? And explain and show your data, make an argument. The second one is yours, all right? So you made your own food web. You modified parameters, some connected, some not, kind of depends. You could have two things connected to one thing, go for it. So that each species survived. Explain how you decided what changes to make, what changes did you make, and what was your data. Okay, so, and then you can read on for your consideration. This has a lot to do, again, with human impact. So ponder this in this question. How does a natural ecosystem offer suggestions towards a more economical and eco-friendly human model? So you have a ecosystem that's very complicated. You want to not disturb that ecosystem with humans coming and interacting with it. How could that happen? The second question is, how do humans affect the greater food web? In this model, how could humans who do not live in the ecosystem still manage to alter the energy flow? Give an example. So I'll go back to my example of housing. You have these developments of apartments or these housing developments, and when they do it, it seems like everything is thought out as far as the planning board and things of that nature. But then you start to realize that you're going into, let's say I live in Littleton, we have a lot of wetlands. Wetlands you should not build houses on. But now things are being this, that, and the other thing, and partially filled in, and things of that nature. So they're building houses where they have little bridges that go across the wetlands, and there's your housing development on the other side. How is that going to, I mean, does it directly impact on all the creatures in the food webs in the wetlands or not? These are the types of things that we have to ask as humans because we're part of the web. We're not separate from it. So how directly do we affect it? How indirectly do we affect it? And this is showing you an example of how I did one of these. So here's a simulation where I had a food web. I had the wolf eat the squirrel. The wolf eats the squirrel. The squirrel eats plant A. The rabbit, old bunny rabbit here, also eats plant A, and no one's eating plant B. Okay, so then after I reset it, I set it to the wolf eating the squirrel who eats plant A, the bunny who eats plant A, and I just clicked on this to activate plant B, but nobody is eating plant B. And then I ran it day 1 to 100, and I just wanted to show you, the wolf didn't die out. The wolf is just one wolf, and at the end there's just one wolf. 100 days is not a long time. Now, let's look at the bunny rabbit. The bunny rabbit, the rabbits increase in number, and then they decrease in number until they come to a steady state. We had the bunny and the squirrel. Also, the squirrel population is in there as well. It's low, it remains low, but all the squirrels didn't die, I don't think. We're going to find out. Anyways, the other thing is that the poor little grass A, which is this color, is going to be consumed by an omnivore and an herbivore. Hello, let's go back. And then the darker color right here is not consumed at all. All right, so let's look at bunny. Bunny population goes up, but it's eating this grass, so the grass goes down. Then the bunny population goes down because some of the offspring are going to starve to death. And because there are fewer bunnies munching on grass A can recover. And you have the same sort of thing here, but not as extensive. It's almost as though the ecosystem starts to get to a steady state. Now let's look at the two grasses. The grasses compete with one another. Grass A is more dominant, but of course grass A is what's being eaten by the bunny. So grass B is going to have a dip because the initial competition between the two grasses. But now grass A is being eaten by the bunny and eaten by the squirrel. So now grass B can have a nice increase in number. And it's going to also reflect what's happening with plant A. Plant A goes up, plant B goes down. Plant B goes down, plant A goes down, plant B goes up, blah, 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 until now you're looking at the steady state at the end. So under the interpretation, and I'm sorry, part of this is out of your reading, it says the number of the top predator, which is the wolf, and the omnivore, which is the squirrel, does not change. However, as plant A is consumed by rabbits and also by squirrel, the rabbit population increases, plant A decreases, which allows plant B to increase. Okay, then the rabbit population decreases, so plant A can increase, and it will outcompete plant B, which decreases. The cycle continues until a steady state is reached with the predator as 1, omnivore as 1, the rabbit population at 150, plant A, hello, at 225, and plant B at 450. So that's the type of information and interpretation that you're going to be doing. When you hit simulator, it's up here that you have the choice between the producers and the web. So you either choose producers or you choose the actual food web. This is the reset, pause, skip, and run. Here's your food web. And so here you have your top predators, your omnivores, your herbivores, and your producers. Now this is where your button is all on. Here's the button for all off. And you don't have to hit the last button. And then, of course, once you've done all of that, you're going to hit run. You're going to see it play out here visually, and you're going to see all the data and the key to what the colors represent here. And that's what you're going to be doing. The 4 experiments are the producers, where you just do the grasses. The second experiment is you're going to add the herbivore. Then with the food chain, you're going to have a very simple food chain where you're going to have a predator-prey producer, and then you're going to have the more complicated one where it's all on, and one where you produce your food chain that is going to allow everyone to survive. So have fun with that, and then answer all the questions that are in these PowerPoints, and email me your lab assignment on the food webs on or before April 3rd, and create a Word document. You don't have to put, you just have to put the data in it. You don't have to copy paste any of the graphs, and obviously your interpretation, blah, 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 organize it nice, and then email that to me at mary.lombard@regiscollege.edu before April 3rd. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.